Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the Pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by X Cancer. Check them out at xcancer.com. Today I have a special guest. I'm joined by a former first-team All-Big, 8 first-team All-American, a guy who ran a 4.54 40-yard dash, which was the fastest 40-yard dash for a Nebraska quarterback at that time. Sugar Bowl MVP and a win over LSU, Mr. Steve Taylor. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, my man. I just got back from Florida. It's a lot of snow on the ground here. Too much.
Yeah, I mean, you live in the area. You live in Nebraska. You know what's going on quite a bit. Talk to me about your thoughts on the Husker football program, what you see, what's going on this offseason, new faces, new coaches, new quarterback, new offensive scheme. Give me your thoughts on the offense and Husker football program at this point in time.
You know, man, I tell you, I know we're limited on time, but coincidentally, I've been here for about 3 decades since I retired from the Canadian Football League in 1997. So I pretty much, seen everything involved, from the Solich situation to Callahan, and then to Pelini and then Riley and then now Frost, So I've kind of experienced all that. And there's just been so much stuff going on. And ironically enough, after they signed Mickey Joseph this year, Mickey Joseph and I, we reconnected because he was coming in as a freshman and going into my junior year. So he bought one of my houses actually. So We're just hanging out at his house, just chatting football and stuff. And since he signed and came back, I mean, a lot of former players have been reaching out to him. And so, and we just came to the conclusion, you know what, man, we need to do something to get everyone back on board, because we've had so much turnover and we had so many Huskers that really, unfortunately, do not feel part of our tradition and our history. And I said, there's been a disconnect. I said, we got to fix that. We got to do what we can as players to do that. And he was all in. So as of right now, this spring, we're going to put together, we're calling the Decades 2022 Husker Player Reunion and Celebration. And you might, obviously, you've gotten this information. You will be getting it if you have not. It's been disseminated just last week. We're going to put on a reunion for all the players from all decades to come back, and we're just going to have a good time, break bread, and just reconnect. Former coaches will come back, current coaches, and just kind of get the players all on one page, because we've been disconnected. We've had too many great players' sons go to different schools for whatever reasons. So we need to try to get back to the things that we were doing that made us so successful for many, many decades. So ironically, that's where we are right now. That's going to happen this spring. And then Irwin Swinning and BJ, Mr. Jackson, They're putting together the celebration part. It's going to be a live concert with some local talent out of Omaha. They're absolutely fabulous. And actually, Aaron Graham's son is one of the artists that's going to be performing at Rosie's after the spring game, and that goes from like 9 to 2, and the player reunion is from 5 to 8. So we're going to do that to try to get this thing so we get all on the same page and get this foundation right. It's just been leaking for decades, and so we're just going to get this foundation right, and the players are going to do our part to give Scott Frost his support on and off the field, so he can be successful, and Trevor's going to be involved in this as well. So that's what we're doing right now. That's actually that's going to happen this spring, and we're hoping to have a really good turnout. So far, we've had almost 100 players RSVP for the event, so we're expecting somewhere between 150 to 250 players, and then their spouses and that kind of stuff. So that's where we are right now, because it's just, unfortunately, things have just not gone well for us, and I never saw this coming. But then I seen it after I seen what we've gone through the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I did get that information. I've already RSVP'd. I will be there. I was excited to see that. And as you mentioned, there's been a lot of different coaches here at the University of Nebraska, and each coach tends to treat players differently, former players differently. Some coaches put more of a priority on bringing back the former players. Some do not. I know Callahan wasn't as open to some of the former players. I didn't know while I was there playing for Callahan, but I found out later on. Matt Turman has an interesting story where Callahan looked at him and said, "You were part of a national championship winning team," which is obviously not very respectful, especially a guy who won a big game at K-State. Great performance by the defense that day as well. And then every coach is a little bit different. And I think when you have that up and down, it creates challenges. I think when Frost came in, it was almost a feeling of, hey, man, this is a former player. This is our guy. And if I'm being fully honest, some players feel more welcome than others. I think that's kind of a natural, just part of the way people work with each other. I think there was a little bit of feeling of maybe the players that Frost played with or from the 90s were a little bit more welcome than anybody else. So I do when I saw that email, I was very excited. I was very happy to see it. Talk to me because, you're not playing any more snaps. I'm not playing any more snaps. I mean, how much does it really matter? And I have my own opinion, but give your thoughts. Former players being involved in the program and backing the program because it sounds good, but in your opinion, how much does that truly matter?
I think it matters a lot when it comes to recruiting, especially when you're looking at our borders. We've lost so many players to Iowa, Wisconsin, our bordering states. And some of those players have their sons have gone there. I know, for instance, Richard Bell had a son that went to Colorado. Nebraska never responded to him at all. They never responded. I just talked to another player just the other day who was outside linebacker, played Bernard Thomas. And his son was never even, he personally called the university and no one ever got back to him about his son. So I think you're right. It's very important to a certain degree, and that's why I say we gotta get this foundation because it's been leaking, so they can get the player support, and that kid will grow up and want to go to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and we need to establish those ties and keep those ties, and I think that was a part of the success of Nebraska. They had a lot of former players who played here, and their siblings came here, or their brothers their brothers came here and played. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that, so. That kept that tradition going. And a lot of those players will have a major impact on the university. So I think it's extremely important to have that fraternity. We have that fraternity naturally, but to have that support. And unfortunately, what is called the foundation to leak or to break down is that when these players are recruited, when they're recruited by Solich or say Pelini, and then Callahan, when those coaches got fired, those players did not come back because that coaching staff was not there. That was one reason why, and I don't live in the past. That was one reason why the former players came back a lot because the coach was still there that coached them.
Yep.
So then you came back to university and you kept those ties and you didn't lose that disconnect. But because we've had all the transitions with the coaching staff, those players do not feel like they're welcome back, or they have no reason to come back because their coach is not there. Now, I made it very clear that we have to take our own initiative because as long as you wore scarlet and cream, you should feel comfortable in going down to that university. Now, you're not going to get season tickets. You can't hang out on the sidelines. You can't. That's not going to happen. Yeah. But you can come back and still be supportive. So we have to police ourselves and have realistic expectation. Hey, we played for the scarlet and cream. We can come back, go to the stadium, go to the spring game. You have access to get tickets. Nothing's free in this world. So we have to do that as players, and that's one thing that we're going to talk about at this reunion, amongst ourselves, that, hey, we need to do our part. And regardless of your status, whether you're All-American, whether you're a All-Big 8, whether you're a walk-on or a major award winner, the thing that we have in common is that we all play for the Huskers. We're scarlet and cream. I had this conversation with a bunch of those national championship guys, and you're one of those, not you particularly, but they were talking about 94, 95, and 97, right?
Yep.
That they got 3 national championships. They asked me, they were joking, they asked me, how many do you have, Steve? I said, well, you know what? I got 5. We got 71, 72, 94, 95, and 97.
Part of the program.
So I'm part of that program. Now, did I personally win a national championship? No. Were we close? Absolutely. Were we in the hunt? Absolutely. But technically, I don't have the national championship, but I feel just as passionate as Nebraska as you do, who have those 3 national championship rings. So I told them that, hey, we need to start understanding that as well. I said, there's a reason why you guys won those national championships with 94, 95, and 97. Those teams before you set the stage. Those teams set the stage for you to do that. Coach Osborne, I even witnessed this. Coach Osborne has evolved just as a coach in how he coaches players, what allowed his players to do, setting goals, national championship goals. So, like I said, I feel part of that, and that's what we got to get back to. That as long as you play for starting cream, you are a Husker.
I couldn't agree more with everything that you said. And it doesn't matter. It matters obviously, but if you were an All-American, like you said, or you were a guy who walked on, who played, who was on the scout team, who was given a look, because if you're not given a good look during the week, the starters aren't ready on Saturday. Everybody plays a role. Everybody has an important part, and everybody should feel welcome back. Okay, and it doesn't matter because, like you said, we're all in this Husker brotherhood together. Here's something I've never really talked about. Part of it, I'm just going to be honest, a little embarrassing, but as the former guy who played for Solich my first half of my career and Callahan the second half, sometimes, and I've heard other former players who played for Callahan, I've heard them say it, and I feel the same way, you almost feel a little bit on the outside because I have heard other Huskers refer to people who played for Callahan as, well, they're a Callahan Husker. So you almost get disregarded a little bit. And so it doesn't matter who you played for, what you did. If you were there and you shed blood, sweat, and tears, practice and games, everybody should feel welcome. And to the leakage in the borders and recruiting, people talk about a pipeline to Texas, Florida. We had the Calabrasca movement like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes.
The biggest pipeline you have is your former players. That's your biggest pipeline. And so I'm with you. I was excited to get that email for several different reasons. I do want to transition real quick. We only got a couple minutes, but you're a former All-American quarterback. We have 2 new transfer quarterbacks. Adrian has transferred to Kansas State. We've only got 1 quarterback in that room who's ever started a game. That's Logan Smothers with 1 start in his career. And I know you didn't transfer. But being a former quarterback, what's it like trying to earn that job? Maybe being the new guy, maybe being a young guy, maybe being inexperienced. You got all this competition in the room. What's going through those quarterbacks' minds right now in that quarterback room?
I've actually met 3 of those quarterbacks here, and it's really refreshing. And Mickey, and this has a lot to do with Mickey Joseph and what he's done just in a short period of time that he's here. And I got a really cute story about Nick and I. But those guys are competitive. They want to start. Now, obviously, the college landscape has changed with the NIL and this transfer portal.
Yep.
Every school is going to be in the same boat when it comes to that. So you're going to have to be on point where you can retain as many athletes as you can, and then go out free agency and pick and get the players that you think can have an immediate impact on your program. But what I like about what we have now, we're going to have 3 or 4 quarterbacks that they're going to have to compete. And you know this when you were there, they're going to have to compete for that starting job. And with that, it raises the level of play, it raises the standard, and players are all in. That's how you build the program. And now they're going to have a quarterback room that they're going to have 3 or 4, maybe even 5 very capable quarterbacks that's going to challenge you and push you. And that's one thing that we have not had at that particular position in almost a decade and a half?
Yeah,
long time. Taylor Martinez was a 4-year starter. Tommy Armstrong was a 4-year starter. And Adrian Martinez was a 4-year starter. That is unheard of.
Yep.
And they were never challenged and never pushed. That's unheard of. So that's going to change immediately. And those guys they're pumped and they're ready to compete. I talked to the guy from Chubbs from Florida State. I talked to Casey Thompson from Oklahoma and some others as well. And even a young kid from Kearney. He feels as if he has a chance to compete now. So that's going to raise that level of play at that position, and it's going to be a dogfight.
I'm a big fan of Heinrich Haarberg, the guy from Kearney. Dude, that kid is big. Yes. He's got an arm, gunslinger mentality, deceptively fast. So I'm right there with you on that. Hey, Steve, I want to thank you for your time. And as always, I enjoyed talking to you, man. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And hey, go Big Red, and let's flip this thing. I think they got a chance to do it this year.
I like it, man. I appreciate it. And until next time, Husker Nation, go Big Red, and always remember, throw the bow. This show is brought to you by X-Cancer. Join the fight at xcancerstore.com and support your loved ones, your neighbors, and cancer fighters all over the world and help them gain access to revolutionary treatments. xcancerstore.com has a wide variety of t-shirts and merchandise supporting a wide variety of cancer battles so you can show off the colors that matter. Proceeds from each purchase not only help those at home, but also cancer fighters in Tanzania, Africa. Check them out at xcancerstore.com.